My daughter sacrificed everything to save my life, and I used the life she gave me to be her ruin. They said the last dose of the medicine was gone, and I could only watch helplessly as the heart monitor of my grandmother, Isabella, turned into a flat line. The next morning, the world hailed it as a miracle when 3-year-old Maria Branyas was saved by that very same dose, while her daughter, Rosa, smiled for the television cameras. To everyone else, I was the dedicated nurse who volunteered to care for Maria personally. They did not see the Avenger calculating every blind spot of the security cameras. I was not there to heal. I was there to wait for the perfect moment, with a syringe full of diazepam hidden in my pocket. But on the night I decided to act, I stumbled upon her diary, hidden beneath her pillow. And when I turned to the last page, I did not find the words of someone who had stolen a life, but the plea of a prisoner. The monster I had come to destroy, I realized, was not the woman lying in that hospital bed at all. My name is Maria Branyas. I am 113 years old. This room at the Olot nursing home is now my entire world. My world is defined by sounds. The steady beep of the heart monitor, the soft hiss of the oxygen machine, and the silence hasten between. They, the nurses and doctors, look at an old body waiting to die. They see an ending. I see something different. I see a game of chess that is not yet over. This game has a single prize, one experimental dose, only one for this entire hospital. It sits in a refrigerated box in the basement, and it can buy me more time. I have always needed more time. The problem is, I am not the only one who needs it. I know this because I am always listening, even when my eyes are closed. A few hours ago, I heard the voice of Dr. Ramos, the man in charge here, speaking with a nurse just outside my door. His voice was low and clear. "What is the status of Isabella Garcia?" "The same, doctor. We can only wait." "Hold on. The experimental dose arrives tomorrow morning. She is at the top of the list. Absolutely no changes." Isabella Garcia, another patient, down the hall. She was at the top of the list. That meant I was not. Their protocol had placed her before me. I felt no fear, only an inconvenience, a miscalculation that needed to be corrected. And to correct such errors, I have the perfect tool. I lay still and waited. I can distinguish the footsteps of every person, and I was waiting for the sound of heels. Finally, I heard it. The frantic clicking of my daughter Rosa's expensive heels on the floor. My door opened. I smelled her perfume, a scent too strong for a place that reeked of disinfectant. She stood by my bed, and I could feel her anxiety. I needed that anxiety. She took my hand. Her hand was warm and soft, but her grip was too tight. "Mother," her voice trembled. "Can you hear me?" This was my moment to act. I used a sliver of my strength to produce a faint groan in my throat. My eyes remained closed. I have spent a lifetime learning how to appear fragile when necessary. "Mother, what is wrong?" Rosa asked, her voice more panicked now. I began to whisper, the words broken, as if I were delirious. "Isabella." I spoke the name. They chose her. "Rosa, my child." "What are you talking about? What Isabella?" I felt her hand squeeze mine tighter. Good. She was hooked. I have spent decades cultivating that mixture of fierce love and profound insecurity within Rosa. She has always had to prove that she was good enough, that her love was strong enough. "The dose. My dose," I continued, my voice weakening. "Are you abandoning me? Is your love not enough?" I paused, letting the words sink in. I heard her sharp intake of breath. The panic in her voice was gone, replaced by a cold determination I knew all too well. "No one is being abandoned," she said, her voice almost a hiss. "You rest. I will take care of this." She let go of my hand. I heard her heels striking the floor as she turned and strode quickly out of the room. I lay there, in the silence. The machines continued their steady rhythm, but I knew something had changed. I had moved my most important chess piece into position. The obstacle named Isabella Garcia was as good as cleared. I lay still and waited. Rosa is my sharpest tool. Her love is a weapon, and her foolishness is the trigger. I never need to give an order. I only need to suggest. I heard her return. This time there were no hurried footsteps. Instead, her steps were slow, controlled. She had a plan. She pulled a chair to my bedside and sat without a word for a long time. I knew she was watching me. I continued my performance. I stirred slightly, the smallest of movements, as if in a nightmare. Then, I slowly opened my eyes, but only a crack, just enough to look frail. I said nothing. I just looked at her. I let a single tear roll from the corner of my eye down to my temple. It is a technique I perfected long ago. A single tear always carries more weight than hysterical sobbing. When she took my hand, I intentionally made my breathing more labored, shallow and rapid. "Mother," she said, her voice calm now, but it was the calm before a storm. "Listen to me. There will be no injustice. You are my everything. I will not let anyone abandon you." That was when I began to whisper again, the words fragmented, as if from a fevered dream. "So unfair. Rosa, you are my everything. Do not let them abandon me." "No one is abandoning you. What are you talking about?" she asked again, though she knew exactly what I was talking about. "Isabella." I repeated the name, planting it in her mind once again. "They chose her. Is your love not strong enough?" I had planted the seed. Now I just had to watch it sprout in the fertile soil of her pride and fear. She was silent for a long time. I could feel the conflict within her, between her love for me and her anger at the system. Finally, she stood up. "You rest," she said, her voice firm. "Everything will be all right, I promise." She left with a look of determination and fury. I closed my eyes. A sense of satisfaction spread through my chest. An almost invisible smile flickered across my lips. The next morning, I did not have to wait long. At 10 o'clock sharp, it was not Dr. Ramos, but Vidal, the nursing home administrator, who personally entered my room with a nurse. I knew Rosa had acted. Vidal avoided my gaze. He looked nervous. "Mrs. Branyas," he said, his voice a little strained. "We have the experimental dose for you." The nurse prepared the syringe. I felt the cold prick of the needle in the vein of my thin arm, then the slow infusion of the liquid into my body. It was not the feeling of life returning. It was the feeling of victory. The taste of another life extinguished so that mine could continue. Sweet. A few hours later, I heard whispers in the hallway. This time there were also sobs. Another voice, faint and grief-stricken. I did not need anyone to tell me. I knew Isabella Garcia was dead. Everything returned to a quiet routine for several days. Until one morning, I felt a different pair of eyes watching me from the doorway. A gaze unlike the other nurses. It held no pity. It was full of fire. I cracked my eyes open to look. It was a young nurse I had not seen before. Her eyes were swollen, but a flame burned within them. "Ah, here she is. Isabella's granddaughter, Anna." She did not look at me like a patient. She looked at me like a monster. Good. Hatred is a powerful energy, predictable and easy to manipulate. This game has just become much more interesting. After Isabella's funeral, things became too quiet. The fire of hatred I had seen in her granddaughter Anna's eyes seemed to have vanished. She continued her duties in Wing B, staying away from Wing D where I was. I began to think I had overestimated her. Perhaps her hatred was just a fleeting grief. How disappointing. But then, a week later, I heard what I had been waiting for. A knock on Vidal's office door, then Anna's familiar voice, loud enough for me to hear from my room. "Mr. Vidal, I have a request." I closed my eyes. I did not need to be there to know what was happening. I could picture it all. Vidal sitting behind his cluttered desk, trying to look busy. Anna standing before him, her back straight, her eyes feigning sincerity. I knew exactly what she would say. She would talk about my extraordinary will to live. She would talk about the inspiration my story had brought. She would say that, after the loss of her grandmother, she wanted to dedicate herself to caring for an icon of life like me. All empty platitudes. carefully polished lies to conceal her true purpose. She thinks she is infiltrating the tiger's den. She does not know that the tiger has already opened the door and rolled out the welcome mat. Vidal, that man, he would agree. He is drowning in guilt. He needs to believe his decision was the right one, that saving me was a noble act and not a dirty transaction. Anna's lies would give him the excuse he needs. Just as I predicted, the next morning my door opened. Anna entered, dressed in a clean white uniform. She was no longer a nurse from another wing. Now she was my primary caregiver. "Good morning, Mrs. Branyas," she said, her voice soft and professional. "My name is Anna. I will be taking care of you from now on." I slowly turned my head towards her. I let my face remain a complete blank, my eyes cloudy and lifeless. I said nothing, just stared at her as if she were a stranger, as if I did not understand what she was saying. I needed her to believe I was just a harmless, senile old woman. She began her work, checking my vitals, changing the IV bag, tidying the nightstand. Every one of her actions was precise and careful, but I could feel the tension in her every movement. I saw the way she glanced at me when she thought I was not looking. I saw how her hand tightened when she picked up a syringe. She was here, right within my grasp. The prey had walked into the trap on its own. Now, the game could truly begin. The following days passed in a carefully calculated routine. Anna was a devoted caregiver, too devoted. She changed my diapers, spoon-fed me, read books to me, and all the while she watched me. I watched her too. My performance had to be perfect, without a single flaw. One afternoon, Rosa arrived. She was always so loud. She brought a container of food from a fancy restaurant. The smell of shark fin soup filled the room. Anna was in the corner, pretending to organize some medicine vials, but I knew she was watching. "Look what I brought you, Mother," Rosa said cheerfully. "Your favorite." Rosa scooped up a spoonful of soup, blew on it gently, and brought it to my lips. This was my chance. Before turning my face away, I shot a quick glance at Anna. I wanted to be sure she was looking. Then I turned away, with a weak but resolute shake of my head. "You have to eat to get stronger," Rosa pleaded, her voice beginning to lose patience. I remained silent, my lips pressed tight. Frustrated, Rosa slammed the bowl down on the table. "Look, little nurse. See my suffering. Ask yourself why someone who just escaped death would not want to live. Let your suspicion grow." I saw her brow furrow slightly. Good. The seed was planted. A few days later, I added a little more spice. It was night time, as Anna was preparing my daily vitamin injection. She sterilized the injection site on my bony arm. As I saw the needle approach, I waited for the right moment. Just as it was about to touch my skin, I summoned a bit of strength, moved my hand, and grasped her wrist. My grip had no force. It was just enough for her to feel it. "Don't," I whispered, a sound so faint it was barely audible. Anna froze. "I'm sorry. What did you say?" I looked at her, forcing a flicker of panic into my clouded eyes. "Please." Then I closed my eyes, as if I had used my last ounce of energy. I felt her hand remain still for a long moment, the needle still hovering over my arm. Eventually, she administered the shot. But I knew her mind was now full of questions. I had given her a puzzle. With her pre-existing hatred, she would find the most incorrect answer herself. But it would be the very answer I wanted her to believe, that I was being forced to live. Now it was time to give her the weapon. That night, I waited until the entire wing had fallen silent. I waited until the night nurse had made her rounds. I carefully sat up, a movement that sent pain through my entire body, but it was a necessary pain. I switched on the smallest nightlight, its faint yellow glow just enough for me to see the page. I took out a small old notebook that I had asked Rosa to bring weeks ago, claiming it was an old keepsake. To kill with a knife is a clumsy affair. To kill with a story that is a masterpiece. And I would write a tragedy. I opened the notebook. My hand trembled with intention as I wrote each line. I wrote about Rosa, about the dose, about the guilt. I turned myself into a martyr. imprisoned in my own body by my daughter's toxic love. And most importantly, I borrowed Isabella's name, borrowed her very death, to serve as the backdrop for my story. Day 15. Rosa brought the medicine today. I saw the nurse, talking to her about someone else, a woman named Isabella. They said she needed this dose more. I tried to shake my head. Day 17. I lived, but that woman Isabella did not. With every vitamin shot they put in me, I feel as if I am drinking poison. My daughter's love is turning me into a murderer. I finished writing and reread every word. Perfect. A tear-jerking story of unwanted sacrifice and the torment of an innocent old woman. I smiled with satisfaction. Then, I carefully hid the notebook between the pages of an old, leather-bound book, one that I knew Anna often rearranged on my nightstand. The trap was set. The bait was laid. Now, I only needed to wait for the fish to take it herself. I had been waiting for this opportunity. Rosa had an unexpected business trip abroad, lasting 2 days. The night nurse on duty was a new girl. I had noticed she was often distracted, sometimes sitting and scrolling on her phone at the nurse's station. The forecast called for a major storm tonight. A perfect chaos to cover up a death. I knew Anna was thinking the same thing. I knew she would act tonight. I lay in bed. My eyes were closed, but every other sense was stretched taut like a wire. Outside, the wind began to howl. I heard Anna's familiar footsteps approaching my room. Her steps tonight were lighter than usual, more cautious. I could smell the disinfectant on her, and something else, the cold scent of deadly resolve. Here it is, the final act. Do not disappoint me, my little actress. The door opened and closed softly. She thought I was sound asleep. She moved in the darkness, lit only by the dim light filtering in from the hallway. I heard a rustle as she took something from the pocket of her blouse. A syringe. I was certain of it. She did not act immediately. She began to tidy my nightstand, arranging medicine bottles, a water glass. She was creating a false scene, making everything seem normal. This was the moment I needed. As her hand passed over the old leather-bound book, I used one of my toes to gently push it from the edge of the table. The book fell to the floor with a soft but audible thud in the quiet room. Perfect. The small diary flew out from between the pages, landing right next to her feet. I continued to feign deep sleep, my breathing even, without the slightest change. I heard Anna freeze. She stood motionless for a moment. Curiosity was battling with her plan for revenge. In the end, curiosity won. I heard her bend down and pick up the notebook, the soft scrape of the plastic chair as she pulled it closer to the bed. Then, the rustle of turning pages. She was reading. I did not need to open my eyes to see what was happening. I could imagine her face transforming with every line I had written. The cold hatred on her face would be slowly melting away, replaced by confusion. Then, shock. I could feel the change in the room's atmosphere. The deadly tension was gone. I heard her sharp intake of breath as she reached the final lines. Pity had replaced her hatred. Her anger was still there, but now it had a new target. Not me, but Rosa and Vidal. Yes, swallow it. Swallow every one of my lies. Let it turn your hatred into my weapon. I heard a clicking sound. She was using her phone to photograph every page of the diary. Then, she carefully placed the notebook back inside the book and left it on the floor where it had fallen, as if nothing had happened. Then I heard her footsteps go into the bathroom, the sound of the toilet flushing. The poison had been disposed of. The avenger of Isabella Garcia would now become the sword of justice for Maria Brañas. The next morning, I knew Anna would act. I just had to wait. Around mid-morning, I heard Anna on the phone at the nurse's station. Her voice was panicked and rushed. A convincing performance. She was calling Rosa. She was setting the trap. And I knew my daughter, in a panic at the thought of losing control, would run straight into it. Less than 30 minutes later, my door burst open. Rosa stormed in. Her face flushed from haste and anger. She did not even glance at me, marching straight to the bed, holding a pill and a glass of water. "Mother!" she snapped. "What is it now? Take your medicine." She pushed the pill toward my mouth. But an arm blocked her. It was Anna. "She will not be taking anything," Anna said, her voice calm but firm. Rosa spun around, her eyes narrowing with fury. "Who the hell do you think you are to stop me?" Anna did not move. Instead, she pulled the small diary from her blouse pocket. She opened it. "I think you should hear this first," she said, and then began to read aloud, her voice clear and decisive. "Today, Rosa brought the medicine. I saw the nurse, talking to her about someone else. A woman named Isabella. Magnificent. She was reciting my script even better than I could have imagined. Her voice trembled with righteous indignation. What a performance! The color drained from Rosa's face. Her anger turned to panic. "Where did you get that? Give it to me." She lunged at Anna, trying to snatch the notebook. Anna stepped back, and they struggled. I knew this was my moment. I summoned a strength no one would think a 113-year-old woman could possess. I leaned out of the bed. Rosa thought I was going to grab her, to defend her. But no, my bony hand did not reach for my daughter. I grabbed Anna's arm, the one holding the diary. I squeezed tightly, an act that looked as if I were protecting the book, protecting the truth. I looked directly into Rosa's eyes. "Look, daughter, this is the final betrayal. I am not just choosing her over you, I am making you the sole villain in everyone's eyes. This is the price you pay for daring to see me as your possession." Stunned disbelief washed over her face. She was watching her mother shield her enemy. Just then, the door was thrown open once more. 2 uniformed police officers stood there, followed by a man in a plain suit, likely a detective. "Miss Rosa Branyas," he said, his voice cold. "You are under arrest for questioning." The play was over. Rosa collapsed. She had no fight left in her. What followed was a whirlwind. Rosa was handcuffed and led away. From the diary and Anna's testimony, the police quickly traced everything to Vidal. He was arrested in his office while trying to destroy records. The story of the miracle collapsed overnight. In its place was the Olot nursing home scandal. The news channels that had once praised me were now scrambling to expose the truth. The pawns had been cleared from the board. The board was now clean, quiet, and a little boring. A month passed. Rosa was facing trial. So was Vidal. The Olot nursing home was under new management. Everything had changed. I had not. My room is brighter now. The window is always wide open, letting in the sun and fresh air. I no longer lie motionless in bed. I can sit in the armchair looking out at the garden. My health improves every day. That dose really worked. One morning, Anna entered my room. She was no longer my personal caregiver, but she still stopped by occasionally. She stood at the door, watching me. "Hello," she said. I turned to look at her. We looked at each other for a long moment. On her face was a smile of relief, the smile of someone who had done the right thing. She still thinks she is the hero. She still thinks she brought justice for Isabella and freedom for me. How adorable. I gave her a slight nod in response. A nod. To her, it was a thank you. It was an acknowledgement of all she had done. To me, it was a final farewell to my most useful pawn. The game was over. She smiled one last time and left, leaving me alone in the silence. I turned back to look at the garden. The flowers were in full bloom. The birds were singing. A peaceful scene. But I did not feel at peace. Freedom. But freedom with no one to control is just another form of prison. I wonder, when will the next game begin?